Every Tuesday at precisely 1400 Galactic Standard Time, Ambassador Vex Thornbeak would ruffle his magnificent crimson feathers, adjust his ceremonial battle sash, and deliver the weekly war report to the Galactic Council. And every Tuesday at precisely 1405, Chancellor Pip Gearwhisper would wear her tiny mechanical joints, polish her brass diplomatic badge, and deliver her own war report that contradicted absolutely everything Vex had just said. This had been going on for 700 years. Honored council members, Vex announced, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who had given this same speech roughly 36,000 times. I am pleased to report that the Korvan Empire has successfully defended the disputed planet Zephyria against 17 separate Nexari incursions this week. Our glorious warriors have once again proven their superiority in combat, tactical planning, and the ancient art of synchronized battle cries. And from her position at the opposing podium, which had been specially lowered to accommodate her 18-inch frame, Chancellor Pip cleared her voice synthesizer with a sound like a computer having a mild stroke. Esteemed colleagues, I must correct the ambassador's grossly inaccurate assessment. The Nexari Federation conducted 17 carefully planned strategic reconnaissance missions to the planet Zephyria, all of which gathered valuable intelligence while successfully avoiding unnecessary casualties. Our advanced combat algorithms continue to demonstrate tactical efficiency rates of 97.4%. Chairman Blobert the Gelatinous, who resembled nothing so much as a lime green blob of jello that had achieved sentience and a law degree, let out a sound somewhere between a sigh and the noise a deflating balloon makes. In his 300 years of chairing the Galactic Council, he had presided over numerous conflicts, territorial disputes, and trade wars. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the sheer bureaucratic nightmare that was the Korvan Nexari War. Thank you both for your reports, Blobert said, his gelatinous form rippling with barely contained exasperation. I assume, as always, that neither side is interested in the 17 different peace proposals currently on file. Vex ruffled his feathers indignantly. The Korvan Empire cannot accept peace while our honor remains unstained by victory. Pip's optical sensors flashed with mechanical disapproval. The Nexari Federation's position remains unchanged. We require a formal acknowledgement of our technological superiority before any cessation of hostilities can be considered. Blobert's form sagged slightly. The peace proposals had been gathering dust for so long that they had actually begun to fossilize. The janitor had started using them as bookends. The war had everything you'd expect from a centuries-long conflict. There were scheduled battles every other Thursday, formal surrender requests that were filed in triplicate and promptly denied, and a complex system of war crime tribunals that met monthly to discuss whether using plasma cannons on Wednesdays violated the rules of civilized warfare. Subsection 12. Paragraph 47. Both sides had their own reasons for continuing the fight. The Korvans, a proud warrior species that looked like someone had crossed an eagle with a professional wrestler, believed that backing down from any conflict was a stain on their honor that could only be cleansed by victory or death. The Nexari, tiny mechanical beings who approached warfare with the same methodical precision they brought to assembling furniture, had calculated that the statistical probability of achieving a favorable outcome increased by 0.03% with each passing year. The Council had tried everything: mediation sessions that lasted for decades, cultural exchange programs where Korvan warriors learned about Nexari engineering and Nexari technicians learned about Korvan battle poetry. They had even hired a professional conflict resolution specialist from the Harmony sector, who had taken one look at the situation and immediately retired to become a meditation instructor on a peaceful farming planet. The most frustrating part was that both sides had actually gotten quite good at fighting each other. Vex and Pip had developed what could almost be called a friendship over the centuries, built on mutual professional respect and a shared appreciation for tactical complexity. They sent each other holiday cards. They had favorite restaurants near the council chambers. Pip had even attended Vex's third molting ceremony. But they were still, technically, at war. Very well, Blobert announced, his tone suggesting he would rather be literally anywhere else in the galaxy. Same time next week, I suppose. Of course, Vex and Pip said in unison, which would have been touching if it wasn't completely insane. As the council session ended and the various alien diplomats began filing out, muttering among themselves about the complete futility of it all, as none of them noticed the slightly confused human standing in the hallway outside, staring at a directory and looking like he had absolutely no idea where he was. Jack Murphy had been having what he would later describe as one of those days that makes you question every life choice you've ever made. He had gotten up at 5 in the morning, caught 3 different transport shuttles, and spent the last 4 hours wandering around what he had assumed was the New Geneva Convention Center, looking for the Intergalactic Insurance Adjusters Conference. Instead, he had somehow ended up in the Galactic Council chambers, holding a lukewarm cup of what might have been coffee but tasted like someone had dissolved a battery in motor oil. "Excuse me," he said to a passing alien who looked like a cross between a squid and a filing cabinet. "Is this where the insurance thing is happening?" The alien stared at him with what appeared to be 12 different eyes, made a sound like a printer running out of toner, and hurried away. Jack sighed and checked his phone. No signal. Of course there was no signal. He was probably in the wrong building, possibly in the wrong city, and quite possibly on the wrong planet. The day was going great. That's when he heard Chairman Blobert's voice echoing from the main chamber, something about peace proposals and honor and technological superiority. It sounded like the kind of corporate meeting that made Jack's soul die a little bit every time he had to attend one. Being naturally curious and having nothing better to do, Jack wandered into the chamber just as Vex and Pip were wrapping up their weekly reports. "Sorry, is this a private thing?" Jack asked, settling into an empty seat near the back. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every alien in the chamber turned to stare at him with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for natural disasters or particularly bad musical performances. "I'm sorry," Blobbert said, his gelatinous form quivering with confusion. "But who are you?" "Jack Murphy," Jack said, raising his coffee cup in a casual salute. "I'm probably in the wrong place. I was looking for the insurance conference, but this looks like some kind of government thing." "Don't mind me. I'll just finish my coffee and get out of your way." Vex's feathers bristled with the kind of outrage typically reserved for blood feuds and parking violations. "You dare to interrupt the sacred proceedings of the Galactic Council?" "Sacred proceedings?" Jack looked around the chamber, taking in the bored expressions, the stacks of ignored paperwork, and the general air of bureaucratic desperation. "This looks like every corporate meeting I've ever been to. What's the sacred part?" Pip's optical sensors flickered with what might have been amusement. The human appears to be unfamiliar with proper diplomatic protocol. "Human?" Jack perked up. "You guys know about humans?" "Of course we know about humans," Blobbert said, his tone suggesting this was an incredibly stupid question. "Your species was admitted to the Galactic Council last month, although you're the first human representative we've actually seen." Jack stared at him. "Representative? Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I sell insurance. I'm here for a conference about adjusting claims on space freighters." The silence that followed was the kind of complete, absolute quiet that usually preceded either enlightenment or complete social collapse. Finally, Vex spoke. "You're telling us that you're not a diplomat?" "Definitely not," Jack confirmed. "Not a negotiator or peace envoy?" Pip asked. "Nope. Not even a government official of any kind?" Blobbert inquired hopefully. "I work for Mutual Assurance of Earth, Incorporated. We specialize in coverage for interplanetary shipping. Our slogan is when your cargo gets lost in space, we've got you covered." The aliens exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey centuries of accumulated frustration. "Right," Jack said, standing up. "This is clearly some kind of mistake. I'm just going to head out and find the actual conference." "Wait," Blobbert said suddenly. "Since you're here, perhaps you could help us with something." Jack paused halfway to the door. "Help you with what?" "Well," Blobbert began, his form rippling with embarrassment, "we have this small problem." Vex squawked indignantly. "Small problem? The Korvan-Nexari War is the greatest conflict in galactic history." "It's been going on for 700 years, Pip added helpfully. Jack turned around slowly. 700 years? Are you kidding me? We most certainly are not kidding, Vex said stiffly. This is a matter of honor, of principle, of the very foundations of civilization itself. What are you fighting about? Jack asked. The question hung in the air like a bad smell. Vex and Pip looked at each other, then at Blobert, then at the floor. It's complicated, Pip said finally. Jack sat back down. I've got time. 20 minutes later, Jack was staring at Vex and Pip with the expression of someone who had just been told that the universe was actually shaped like a pretzel and ran on good intentions. Let me get this straight, he said, rubbing his temples. You've been fighting for 700 years over a planet that nobody actually wants. The planet Zephyria is strategically vital to our interests, Vex insisted, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. It contains valuable resources essential to our technological advancement, Pip added, a mechanical voice somehow managing to sound defensive. Jack pulled out a small tablet and started taking notes. What kind of resources? Well, Vex began, then paused. Pip, what kind of resources does Zephyria have again? Pip's optical sensors dimmed slightly. I believe the original surveys mentioned rare minerals and possibly some kind of agricultural products. You believe? Jack looked up from his tablet. You don't actually know? The surveys were conducted 700 years ago, Blobert explained. The files may have been misfiled at some point during the bureaucratic reorganization of Stardate 2847.6. Jack set down his tablet. So you're telling me that you've been fighting over a planet for 7 centuries and nobody has bothered to check what's actually on it? The silence was deafening. This is insane, Jack said. This is completely, utterly insane. You people have been killing each other for 700 years over what might be an empty rock. It's not that simple. Vex protested. There are matters of honor involved. Pride. The respect of our warrior ancestors. Computational algorithms and statistical projections, Pip added. The strategic implications of the conflict extend far beyond the immediate territorial dispute. Jack stood up. You know what? Let's continue this conversation over lunch. I haven't eaten since this morning, and I think better when I'm not hungry. The suggestion caused another round of horrified stares. Lunch? Blobert sounded like Jack had just suggested they all strip naked and dance on the council table. During official proceedings? Why not? Jack was already heading toward what looked like it might be a cafeteria. You've been having the same argument for 700 years. I don't think taking a break is going to make things worse. 30 minutes later, they were sitting in the council cafeteria, which served food that could charitably be described as technically edible. Jack was working his way through something that might have been a sandwich if sandwiches were purple and made small humming sounds. Vex was picking at a bowl of what appeared to be fermented grain pellets, and Pip was recharging from a wall outlet while occasionally commenting on the conversation. So let me understand this, Jack said between bites of his humming sandwich. The war started as a trade dispute? A very serious trade dispute, Vex corrected. The Nexari Federation accused the Korvan Empire of monopolizing the galactic coffee bean trade. Which was a completely accurate assessment, Pip added. The Korvans were charging 73% above market rate for premium beans. Market rate is determined by supply and demand, Vex squawked. If the Nexari wanted cheaper coffee, they should have grown their own. Jack paused mid-chew. Coffee beans? You started a 700-year war over coffee beans? Premium coffee beans, Vex said defensively, right from the legendary plantations of Zephyria. They're the finest in the galaxy. Pip corrected. The plantations were destroyed in the first year of the war. By your ships, Vex accused. After your forces attacked our trade vessels, Pip shot back. Jack set down his sandwich. So the thing you were fighting over was destroyed 700 years ago? Well, yes, Vex admitted. But by then, it was a matter of principle. Our computers had already generated 17,000 strategic scenarios, Pip added. It would have been inefficient to halt the calculations. Jack stared at them. Your computer's been running battle simulations for 700 years? Of course, Pip said, sounding surprised. How else would we maintain tactical superiority? And you, Jack said, turning to Vex, have been fighting a war because your computers told you to. Not exactly. Vex ruffled his feathers uncomfortably. We fight because honor demands it. The computers merely provide strategic support. Jack rubbed his face with both hands. This is the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my entire life. And I once had to explain to a client why their insurance didn't cover damage caused by their own pet dragon. It's not stupid, Vex protested. It's complex. There are historical precedents, cultural considerations, technological implications. It's stupid, Jack said firmly. You're fighting a war that nobody wants, over something that doesn't exist, because your computers are stuck in a loop and you're too proud to turn them off. The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken only by the gentle humming of Jack's sandwich. When you put it like that, Bloodiest said slowly, it does sound rather foolish. Jack finished his sandwich, crumpled up the wrapper, and looked at his watch. Right. I've got about 2 hours before my wife starts wondering where I am, so let's fix this thing. Fix what thing? Vex asked suspiciously. Your war, Jack said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. It's broken. We're going to fix it. Pip's optical sensors flashed with what might have been panic. You can't just fix a 700-year war. Watch me, Jack said, pulling out his tablet again. First, I need you both to make a list. What kind of list? Bloodiest asked, his gelatinous form leaning forward with interest. A list of everything you're currently fighting about, not the historical stuff, not the honor and principle garbage. What are you actually, specifically, fighting about right now today? Vex and Pip looked at each other. Well, Vex began slowly. There's the matter of territorial sovereignty over the Zephyria system, which nobody wants, Jack pointed out. And the question of trade route access through the nebula sector, Pip added. Jack looked up from his tablet. Do either of you actually use those trade routes? Not since the war began, Pip admitted. The routes go through contested space, Vex explained, too dangerous for civilian traffic. So you're fighting over trade routes that you can't use because you're fighting over them? Jack asked. It's more complicated than that, Vex said weakly. Is it? Jack turned to Pip. What else? There's the question of reparations for the destruction of the coffee plantations, Pip said. That you destroyed. Vex interjected. After you attacked our ships, Pip reminded him. Because you were trying to steal our coffee, Vex shot back. Enough, Jack said firmly. The coffee is gone. It's been gone for 700 years. Nobody is getting reparations for 700-year-old coffee. What else? Vex and Pip looked at each other, then at Bloodiest, then back at each other. I can't think of anything else, Pip said finally. There must be something. Vex insisted. We've been fighting for 700 years. There has to be a reason. Jack set down his tablet. There is a reason. You've been fighting because you forgot how to stop. The silence stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. You know what I think? Jack continued, warming to his theme. I think you two actually like each other. I think you've been at this so long that you've turned it into the galaxy's most expensive social club. That's ridiculous, Vex sputtered. Is it? Jack asked. Pip, when was the last time you talked to anyone other than Vex about military strategy? Pip's optical sensors dimmed. I don't understand the question. When was the last time you had a conversation with someone who understood your work? Someone who appreciated the complexity of what you do? Well, Pip said slowly, Vex does provide interesting tactical challenges. And Vex. Jack turned to the bird-like alien. When was the last time you fought someone who was actually worth fighting? Someone who made you think, who made you work for your victories. Vex's feathers drooped slightly. The Nexari are worthy opponents, he admitted grudgingly. Your friends, Jack said simply. You've been friends for centuries. You just happened to build your friendship around the most expensive hobby in galactic history. We are not friends, Vex protested, but his voice lacked conviction. We are professional adversaries, Pip added, but her mechanical voice sounded uncertain. Jack grinned. Right. Professional adversaries who send each other holiday cards. Both aliens suddenly found the table very interesting. Here's what we're going to do, Jack said, pulling out a piece of paper. We're going to end this war right now today in the next hour and a half. And then we're going to figure out what you two are actually good at when you're not shooting at each other. You can't just end a war by deciding to end it, Blubber protested. Sure you can, Jack said, already scribbling notes. Vex, you've got a huge military with nothing to fight. Pip, you've got the most advanced logistics computers in the galaxy with nothing to optimize. What do you get when you combine a military with advanced logistics? A very efficient war machine. Vex suggested. A delivery service, Jack said triumphantly. The galaxy's best, fastest, most secure delivery service. You've already got the ships, the personnel, the infrastructure. You just need to stop shooting at each other and start delivering packages. Pip's optical sensors flashed rapidly. The computational requirements for optimizing delivery routes across the galaxy would be extraordinarily complex. And you'd need security for high-value shipments, Vex added, his voice gaining enthusiasm. Trained warriors who could protect cargo from pirates and hostile forces. Now you're getting it, Jack said, grinning. The Korvan Nexari Express. When it absolutely, positively has to get there overnight, anywhere in the galaxy. The two former enemies stared at each other across the table. It could work, Pip said slowly. It would be glorious. Vex breathed. Honorable combat in service of commerce. You could probably corner the market within a year, Jack added. Nobody else has your combination of military precision and technological sophistication. Blobert's gelatinous form was quivering with what might have been excitement. Do you mean to tell me that you've solved a 700-year war in 2 hours by turning it into a business opportunity? Jack shrugged. It's not rocket science. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. He looked at his watch. Speaking of which, I really do need to get going. My wife is making dinner, and she gets cranky when I'm late. 6 months later, Korvan Nexari Express had become the most successful shipping company in galactic history. Their slogan, delivered with honor and precision, had become as recognizable as any brand name in the galaxy. Vex had been promoted to Chief Security Officer, a position that allowed him to satisfy his warrior instincts by designing elaborate security protocols for high-value shipments. Pip had become Director of Logistics, running computational models so complex that they made her old battle simulations look like simple addition problems. The war was officially over. The peace treaty had been signed on a napkin from the council cafeteria, witnessed by a bemused janitor who later sold the napkin to a museum for enough money to retire to a nice farming planet. But the real change wasn't in the shipping company or the peace treaty. The real change was in the Galactic Council itself. Word had gotten out about the human who had solved the galaxy's longest war in 2 hours. Suddenly, every species with an unsolvable problem was showing up at the council chambers, asking for human advice. The crystalline hive mind of Sector 7 had spent 3 centuries trying to decide whether to expand their territory or focus on internal development. Jack had listened to their presentation for 20 minutes, then suggested they do both by starting a tourism industry. You're living crystals who can sing in harmony, he had pointed out. Half the galaxy would pay to see that. The Aquatic Federation of Oceanus Prime had been locked in a bureaucratic dispute over water rights that had lasted for 200 years. Jack had resolved it by pointing out that they were arguing over water rights on a planet that was 97% ocean. He had suggested they focus on water export instead of water hoarding. The tentacled philosophers of the Wisdom Nebula had been debating the meaning of existence for 400 years. Jack had listened to their arguments for an hour, then told them that the meaning of existence was to be useful to someone else. Stop thinking about it and go do something, he had said. Philosophy is a hobby, not a career. Chairman Blobert was having something that could charitably be called an existential crisis. In 300 years of chairing the Galactic Council, he had never actually solved anything. He had presided, mediated, and facilitated, but he had never actually fixed a problem. Now this random human with no diplomatic training had solved more conflicts in 6 months than the entire council had managed in centuries. "I don't understand it," Blobert confessed to Jack during one of their regular lunch meetings. "How do you make it look so easy?" Jack shrugged. "It's not easy. It's just that you guys make it harder than it needs to be. You've got so many rules and procedures and protocols that you forget what you're actually trying to accomplish. But surely there must be some method to your approach," Blobert pressed. "Some system or strategy?" "I ask people what they want," Jack said simply. "Then I ask them what's stopping them from getting it. Usually the thing that's stopping them is something stupid that they can fix themselves if they just stop overthinking it." "That's it?" Blobert sounded disappointed. "That's it," Jack confirmed. "Most problems aren't actually complicated. They just look complicated because people have been staring at them for so long that they can't see the simple solution anymore." It was around this time that the Galactic Council officially created the position of Chief Problem Solver, a job that came with a salary, benefits, days, and a private office with a really comfortable chair. Jack had accepted the position with the understanding that he would continue to work entirely without formal diplomatic training, official credentials, or any kind of coherent methodology beyond basic common sense. "You realize," Blobert had said during the job interview, "that you're completely unqualified for this position." "I'm unqualified for every position," Jack had replied. "That's never stopped me before." The job came with some interesting perks. For one thing, Jack was now technically a diplomatic representative of Earth, which meant he got to attend all sorts of fancy meetings with important aliens. For another, he had discovered that the Galactic Council had an excellent health plan that covered things like existential dread and species-specific anxiety disorders. But the best part of the job was that it was never boring. Every day brought a new problem, a new crisis, a new opportunity to apply what Jack had started calling the Murphy method to some seemingly impossible situation. The Murphy method, as far as anyone could tell, consisted of listening to people complain, asking obvious questions that nobody had thought to ask, and pointing out simple solutions that everyone had somehow missed. It was, according to the aliens, a revolutionary approach to problem solving. According to Jack, it was just common sense. It was exactly 1 year after the end of the Korvan Nexari War when Jack finally got around to mentioning something that had been bothering him. "You know," he said to Blobert during their weekly lunch meeting, "I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but I was never actually appointed as Earth's diplomatic representative." Blobert paused mid-bite of his nutrient gel. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not a diplomat," Jack said. "I never was. I was just lost." The silence that followed was the kind of complete, absolute quiet that usually preceded either enlightenment or complete social collapse. Again. "Lost?" Blobert's voice was very small. "I was looking for the Intergalactic Insurance Adjusters Conference," Jack explained. "I took a wrong turn somewhere and ended up in your council chambers. I kept meaning to leave, but then you guys had all these interesting problems, and I figured I'd help out for a while." Blobert set down his spoon with the careful precision of someone whose entire worldview was slowly crumbling. "You're telling me that you're not a trained negotiator?" "Nope." "Not a conflict resolution specialist?" "Definitely not." "Not even a government employee of any kind?" "I sell insurance," Jack said helpfully. "Mutual Assurance of Earth, Incorporated. We specialize in coverage for interplanetary shipping. Actually, business has been great since Korvan Nexari Express started operating. Turns out that having the galaxy's best delivery service means having the galaxy's most expensive insurance claims." The silence stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. "So you're telling me," Blobert said slowly, "that the greatest diplomatic crisis in galactic history was solved by someone who sells insurance?" "Yeah, pretty much," Jack confirmed. "Someone who wasn't even supposed to be here?" "I was looking for the conference center," Jack said. "This place really needs better signs." Blobert's gelatinous form began to quiver, and for a moment Jack was worried that he was having some kind of breakdown. Then he realized that Blobert was laughing. "This is perfect," Blobert said, his voice shaking with mirth. "This is absolutely perfect. We spent 700 years trying to solve an unsolvable problem, and it got fixed by accident by a lost tourist." "I'm not a tourist," Jack protested. "I'm a businessman. There's a difference." "Is there?" Blobert asked. "You wandered into a strange place, looked around, asked some questions, and then started telling the locals how to run their lives more efficiently." Jack considered this. "Okay, when you put it like that, I guess I kind of am a tourist." "The best kind of tourist," Blobert said, "the kind that actually helps." That's when Jack made the decision that would change the course of galactic history for the second time in as many years. "You know what?" he said. "I think I'm going to stay." "Stay?" Blobert looked surprised. "Yeah," Jack said, warming to the idea. "I mean, my wife is probably wondering where I've been for the past year, but she's used to me getting lost. And you guys clearly need someone to keep you from completely screwing things up." "You want to continue being our chief problem solver?" Blobert asked hopefully. "Someone has to do it," Jack said. "Besides, the insurance business is pretty boring compared to this. When was the last time I got to prevent a galactic war by suggesting someone start a delivery service? And that's how humanity accidentally became the galaxy's unofficial customer service department. Not through conquest or diplomacy or technological superiority, but because one guy got lost looking for an insurance conference and couldn't resist the urge to fix things that were obviously broken. Within 5 years, human problem solvers were stationed at every major diplomatic outpost in the galaxy, armed with nothing but common sense, a profound disrespect for bureaucracy, and an apparently endless supply of simple solutions to complex problems. The galaxy had never run more smoothly. Jack's wife, incidentally, was not particularly surprised when he called to explain that he had accidentally become a galactic diplomat. "That's nice, dear," she had said. "Try not to start any wars." Actually, Jack had replied, "I think I'm better at ending them." Which was, as it turned out, exactly what the galaxy needed.